Hey everybody, what's going on? I've recently started to focus on Faction Wars specifically. Between the new champ that's going to be coming out for having all of it 3-starred, and just kind of being out of things to do in the game, I have recently started to pay some attention to Faction Wars finally. So we're making our way through. You'll see we've got some 63s peppered throughout. And unfortunately, I did not decide to do this as I was doing the other factions. When they open up, maybe I will go back through and we can talk about how I cleared them as well. If you guys like this, if there's enough of an interest in Faction Wars for me to do that, then I'll do that. Otherwise, I may just continue to do it as I work on the factions I still have to work on. Today, we cleared the Dwarf Faction Crypt. This is by far not only the hardest faction crypt that I've cleared so far. I think it's the hardest thing I've ever done in Raid. I have never had something test me to this degree. There have been things that have been challenging, but generally I can solve a problem in this game in 2 or 3 attempts. And this one I've spent a long time. I've spent a lot of gear, a lot of silver on gear, a lot of time re-gearing, and it's been very tough. And I want to, before I get into this, give a shout out to Gods Gunslinger. He is a YouTuber, and he has been making a lot of Faction Wars content. I referenced his video for some of this. It was very helpful. He gives pretty detailed builds on the champs that he's using, and at least I'm getting the impression at least that he will be going through and doing it for every faction. So go check him out. I'm going to put his link in the description of this video. Go check him out. You'll definitely get some different looks than I'll be showing you, but he's given really good information, okay? So, and it wouldn't hurt to go see how he did it too, because like I said, there are going to be some differences here. So maybe between the two of us and whoever else you're gathering info from. I know Chosen's been doing Faction Wars, guys. Just gather all the information you can, put it all together, and figure out a way to make it work, because this, especially the Dwarf Faction Crypt, is so hard. So the team I did it with is Maulie, Gala, Rearguard, Grizzled Jarl, however you want to say it, and Rockbreaker. Now, I want to give a disclaimer before I get into this. This is not a free-to-play guide. This is not... I like to make a lot of content for earlier game and mid-game. This just isn't for you guys yet. It is very difficult. It is very demanding. It's pretty specific. Maybe if we get to a point later where it can be done with more rares in the mix, it can be closer to a free-to-play thing. We will work on these things later, but for now, I just want to show you the team that I used to clear it, in case you happen to have these champs lying around too. If you've been playing for a while, you probably have a Maulie because she was a fusion a while back, and then everybody else here is an epic. So Gala's going to be a little bit more rare, but it's not super unlikely that you guys are going to have these epics lying around, okay? So just understand, this is not like a... here's how everybody can do this. This is, if you've got these champs, here's how I did it. Maybe I can save you some of the headache that I went through getting all this right, okay? The big key to this is this guy, okay? And having him be targeted and having him proc this passive, okay? Has a 25% chance of decreasing damage inflicted on this champion by 50% each time he's attacked. You can get it up to a 50% chance. So half the time, he'll cut the damage in half. The boss in Faction Wars ignores defense on the A1. There are no minions, and the second skill that boss has cleanses all debuffs from itself, puts a crowd control on everybody, gets another turn, hits with the A1, ignores defense. That boss hits hard, okay? You're probably going to need this passive because part of what you're doing with this guy is stacking his defense up to a crazy number, but keeping his HP reasonable. And I say reasonable again. It's not... it's not reasonable, but for what we're doing, it's reasonable. He's on the slower side. More speed is generally not going to be a bad idea. At the end of this, I'm going to show you the run, and I'm going to talk through the run and point out a few things that are happening as we go. But we've got some crit on him. It's not really a big deal. If you can get it, it's nice, but it's not the focus. What you really want to do, it's nice for him to have accuracy so he can land those provokes. It's nice for him to have some resistance so he can resist debuffs. But really, you want his defense up super high, again, because his damage scales off of it, and his HP low. Low in comparison to the rest of the team, and we'll talk about what the rest of the team looks like. But this way, he's a lot more likely to be targeted when the boss uses its A1. Okay, you don't want the boss hitting other people. You want the boss hitting Rockbreaker. That's what another reason we've got him on lifesteal is so that he can steal health back up and get into a position to take that A1 hit on the next turn, right? Take a look at his masteries real quick. This is what we're rocking on him. The crit rate stats, pretty standard stuff over here. Honestly, the extra life steal is pretty important here. Again, we want him stealing as much life as possible. And then over here, we went defense, reduced damage from AoE attacks. Probably wouldn't be the end of the world if we could get reduced the damage from crits on him, but it's apparently not mandatory because I managed to get it done like this. So this is the route we went for his masteries, okay? He is skilled up. It's really not a bad idea to get this passive skilled up. It can be done without doing it, but it's gonna make RNG less of a factor here, right? And what's a real bummer is if you get to the end of the run and he does get one-shotted and Maulie doesn't have her revive ready. That happened to me the run before I cleared it. I had to come and make a few more tweaks, but the run before I cleared it, he had about that much HP left, and Maulie was one more turn away from having revive. Rockbreaker went down. I could not kill him. Like, you know, I had to use skills, and he had so little health that he died. So I was basically one more cooldown on Maulie away from 3-starring it the first time. But I guess it worked out because the second run, I just kind of knew we were going to be able to do it, and I went ahead and recorded it, thankfully. So that's Rockbreaker. Pretty important part of this run, to be honest. For old Grizz, we just went speed, immortal, defense. The immortal is a nice touch. Speed and defense you don't have to use, but in this case they were pretty helpful. Let's talk about where he's at with his stats. We got him over 60,000, about 62,000 HP, and almost 2,900 defense. And again, he ended up with some crit stats. Wasn't necessarily intentional, it's just kind of the way it happened. Same thing, we got resistance, over 200 accuracy. We could probably use a little more resistance, but it's not that big of a deal. And he's pretty easy to build. He scales pretty well, but you do want to get that HP high, right? Like high. You want it up there. You need these guys to be able to take these hits from this boss because defense is going to be getting ignored. And you need to have a big enough gap. Here's the thing. Rockbreaker has to have low HP relative to the team, but the HP still has to be high enough to take the hits, right? And that's where this gets tough because we have on this defense champ, we have almost 5,000 defense and almost 38,000 HP, okay? 38,000 HP is not necessarily low, especially on a defense champ, but it's low relative to the team. So that's why the other guys have to be, 60 plus, right? So Jarl's here because of this. This is really helpful in the fight, especially to kick things off with the speeds that I'm at. This way he gets to do this right before everybody takes the hit. Now, the way that it was working out for me was, I think, I can't remember. It was either Maulie or Rockbreaker. Rockbreaker might have been catching the crowd control. It would be dependent on how much damage Gala would do, and we'll talk about that in the run. And then on the A3, we've got another attack down. Rearguard also has an attack down. You want to time these kind of appropriately. This team might be able to auto sometimes, but it is a lot easier if you manual because you can time the attack downs. You don't waste stuff right before the boss is going to use their A2 because the boss is going to cleanse stuff. So you don't want to stack all the important debuffs right before that happens because it's just going to cleanse them. So it's a lot easier to manual the run. Grizzled Jarl here, we'll take a look at his masteries. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on their masteries. I'm just going to let you get a glimpse of them, and if you want to use them, you can. A lot of it's fairly the same principle. You know what I mean? And we have, again, immortal, defense, and speed sets. The more immortal, the better, I reckon. This is just... He already had these on him, so I threw the immortal set on him for a little bit more healing. And, made sure we hit these numbers on him. Looking at Rearguard, we've got her on lifesteal as well. Lifesteal immortal. And we've got her at about 65,000 HP, 2,200 defense, right around 200 speed. Over 200 accuracy because those debuffs are crucial. And then the resistance we could get, it's not a huge deal, right? Rearguard is doing a lot. She's throwing up a defense break, which is going to speed up the rate at which you take the boss down, which is also going to speed up the rate at which the boss gets turns, but it's not too big of a deal. It doesn't tip the scale necessarily so far in the boss's favor. Here we've got an attack down on a 3-turn cooldown as well. More lifesteal on top of the lifesteal set, on top of masteries. She's got pretty good lifesteal in here, right? And she needs it bad because she puts continuous heal on everyone except herself. So if she's not lifestealing, she's not getting any health back. So she has to be on lifesteal, okay? It's very important that she be on lifesteal. Another reason this is so important is because she's putting this ally protection up on everybody. And if things are going well, Rockbreaker's being targeted. So now not only is Rockbreaker's passive going to potentially mitigate a ton of that damage that's coming in, she's going to take a lot of it off of him too, which makes it that much less likely that he's going to get one-shotted. But again, emphasis on the lifesteal. It is mandatory here, okay? These are what we went with for her masteries. We made sure we got her the lifesteal, made sure we got her the tier 6 so she could proc that War Master, get a little more lifesteal. Here we reduce the damage she takes from crits. Again, there's a glimpse of it if you wanted to copy it. The stats are high, okay? Again, this is not a free-to-play thing by any stretch. This is pretty demanding. You'll notice I came in and I had to come up and glyph up a lot of this gear, flat defense, flat HP, everything I could to get these numbers up. The good news is, a lot of this gear I feel like now we'll just be able to kind of swap around onto the different champs for other factions. Maybe a lot of the work is done in that sense for other factions. We will see how it goes. Moving right along, we have Gala. She is an interesting case as well. Lifesteal on her is all but mandatory. It may be able to be done without it, but it makes your life so much easier because, again, she needs to stay in position to have a lot of health to not be targeted. The boss will still target her sometimes, I noticed in my runs, and it didn't always make sense. Sometimes Rockbreaker would have the lower health. I did figure out that I think there's something to do with buffs. I noticed if Rockbreaker was heavily buffed, the boss wouldn't target him. We'll talk more about that in the run, but we've got a Lifesteal Immortal set here, and we went full tank build here. You notice the attack is pretty low. We did hit the crit so that she can still land the critical hits, but we've got HP percentage on the gloves and armor here. And we've got her up at around almost 60,000. Defense is relatively low. Attack is still not awful, but she's built like an HP tank here. So right around 200 speed, we managed to hit the crit rate. We don't care about the rest of this stuff. She's there to, do some of the damage. And she does well. She does well to help chunk down the waves a good bit. She's very handy for this run. So that's what she looks like. Quick look at her masteries if you want to see them. Again, pretty standard. Try to reduce the damage she takes from crits because that boss be hitting, dude. And then Maulie. Now I had some trouble with Maulie as well, getting the boss not to target her. So I use her in arena. I switched up her build a little bit. Particularly the HP amulet, and then I think we might have moved some stuff around up here, but she is at almost 63,000 HP, about 3,600 defense, pretty fast, and really good resistance. The accuracy is okay, and she's there as a good bit of insurance. One, she can lock down the waves. That second wave is really annoying with the Man-Eater and the Steel Skull. You kind of have to lock both of them down until the Man-Eater's dead, because if Man-Eater gets a turn off, he's going to do his stupid skill that makes that run way more annoying. And if you only lock down Man-Eater, then Steel Skull's going to cleanse him. And then Man-Eater's going to do his stupid skill. So you need to lock down both, and that's another reason that it's good to auto that wave. Especially if the stats aren't quite where they are. This team would auto through, but you'll see that I took over halfway through that wave to make sure that when we got to the boss, everything was off cooldown, everybody was fresh, we were ready to roll. Okay, now Frost Set's not mandatory on her. You could probably put her on something like a Lifesteal or something more similar to a Jarl's build. But I didn't want to take her gear off because I use her in arena, and I was just trying to avoid moving her gear around too. So I left her as well as on as well on the masteries that I use for her in Arena. So if you want to get a look at those, that's what they look like. But you could also probably just throw a lifesteal setup on her and kind of go the same way we went with Gala or something. But she did her job. Like I said, I had some issues with her getting targeted, but that's the team I used. That's how they're built. That's why they're built the way they're built. Now we're gonna hop over and take a look at the run. Okay, so this is where the run starts. I did not hit record until kind of a little bit into the run, but basically on that first wave, you can auto. I just come in and auto and target Gator so that Gator doesn't get any revives off and slow things down. Here, you'll see that I'm leaving it on auto for a while. I'm targeting the Man-Eater, and I was a little bit late. I was kind of doing other things, not really paying attention, but we target the Man-Eater. I like to target that guy because he's squishy, and we can get him out of there quick. Someone may even die on the waves, but it's not that big a deal because Maulie can bring them back. And a lot of time it's better. Like there, it was better that Rearguard died because her health was so low. So rather than her have to lifesteal it back over time, she comes back at 50%. She's got a pretty good head start. So it's not even necessarily a bad thing if they die on the wave. Now, at the boss, you want to not put up any important debuffs on this first turn because the boss is going to start with the A2, which is a full cleanse and then puts up the fear and everything. So what you want to do is get that block debuffs up first. Now, you'll see Rockbreaker still catches the true fear. If I had him a little bit faster, I could get his turn off before. Jarl could come in behind everybody and put up the block debuffs and no one would catch the true fear on the first turn. Not that big of a deal. You'll see right there, we got a little unlucky. Rockbreaker's passive did not proc. He went down. Maulie can bring him back. That's one of the great things about Maulie here. So some important things to note while you're fighting the boss. One, watch the cooldowns. When it looks like it looks right now with the 1 on it, don't put up any important debuffs. Don't burn your attack down skills getting that up because the boss is going to remove it before he attacks, okay? So don't waste any cooldowns there. Now is where we want to try to get the attack down up while that has a 3 or a 2 on it, okay? Gauge them too. If just manage your cooldowns wisely, right? Don't throw up the strongest skill someone has every time they have it up. You'll notice that I skipped over Jarl's attack down skill a couple times because we had it up already. I didn't want to waste it. I want to make sure we keep it up on the turns where it's relevant. Another interesting thing is with Rockbreaker, don't bother A2ing. I think if you get too many buffs stacked on Rockbreaker, the boss will stop targeting him. So with the ally protect, the continuous heal, the defense, the block debuffs, and a counterattack, I think the boss is less likely to target him. That was my experience anyway. You'll see Rearguard went down there, but Maulie is definitely going to have her revive back right now. So she's gonna be able to bring her up and we'll be in good shape. You'll also notice that I put up the reflect on Maulie a lot rather than use her A1. That's because if she gets targeted, which the boss was tending to target her in previous runs, I like to send a little bit of damage back at the boss, but that's that. It's, like I said, you're gonna need a little bit of RNG for it because sometimes Rockbreaker's passive just won't proc and he's gonna get wiped, and sometimes it's gonna happen at an inopportune time and it's gonna suck. Here, this is, you don't hear it, but I'm celebrating at my desk pretty hard right now because this is a project. This is hard. So we'll cut back to the old bastion now. And that's gonna wrap it up for this one. I hope that you guys got something out of this. Again, this is not so much a guide for everyone as much as here's how I did it. Maybe I can save you some headache because it's a project, man. It's a tough one. The other ones have been relatively easy. I shift a little gear around. A couple of them have just autoed through it. It really hasn't been that bad. Dwarves was bad. Dwarves is a tough one. So if you're struggling with it, don't beat yourself up. You know, check out Gods Gunslinger. Reference this video. I think Chosen's been doing some videos. I'm sure some other guys are doing some videos as well. Just gather as much information as you can. I'm sure that across several different content creators, something's going on in your champ box, assuming you're far enough in the game to be able to do it. Something's going on in your champ box and your artifact storage that can make this happen. You may have to pull some gear off some pertinent champs temporarily to make it happen. Don't be unwilling to do that, right? Get it clear and be done with it. You never have to do it again, in theory. So It's worth moving the gear around to do it. So again, hopefully it helped. I appreciate you guys watching. If you have any suggestions for the Dwarves faction crypt, leave them in the comments below. Maybe you've got a team that's different than the one I used here. Maybe you've got some tips on just anything in general that you think would be helpful. I'm all for that stuff in the comments, and I appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.